So, Nadine, your new film, Capernaum, has received rave reviews and won a couple of prizes at the Cannes Film Festival. Can you just take us back to the beginning and tell us a bit about where the idea for this movie came from?
Um, the idea came really from uh, the sight of children on the streets, either children begging or children working or children who are deprived from their most basic rights. And it's something that lots of children around the world are struggling with right now. And I think I'm not the only one being, moved by it. I just felt the need to express it. I just felt the need to talk about it, and really a lot of different small stories inspired, not stories, but small situations actually inspired this whole thing. Especially when you see those kids. Deprived, from their most basic rights. Some of them are even deprived from sleeping, which is their most fundamental right. So I think in a way, I feel responsible. I feel like I can sort of do something about it. I can use my tool, which is filmmaking, to try to do something about it, even if I don't succeed. At least it might, trigger a conversation. Or so it was really, it was one specific day where I was coming back from a party and I saw a child sitting on a sidewalk with his mom, and he was, his mom was begging and he was dozing off, trying to sleep, and he couldn't sleep because it was so uncomfortable. He couldn't really sleep. So I thought, if this child could talk, what would he say? What would he tell the world? How would he address us, the society that is ignoring him, is ignoring his struggle? Because this is what we do. Unfortunately, we ignore the situation. Maybe because it's sometimes we think the problem is too big, we can't do anything about it, so we decide to not look at it. So what goes on in the heads of those children when we're there, not looking at us, not looking at them? Especially those children that sometimes, this child that is standing right in front of, next to your car window, looking at you, not looking at him. How does he feel? How does it feel to be so ignored? How does it feel to almost be non-existent? And this is how it all started, just wanting to know, who is this boy? Where does he go when he disappears around the corner and I don't see him anymore? What is his life? What is his, where does he, who is his family? What is his daily struggle? And so we started the research process, and it took 4 years, and the writing process was happening in parallel of the research, and then so the research turned into a script, and the script into the film, and the film hopefully into a debate, and that's it.
You said you did some research. Could you just dive into that a little bit more and explain what kind of research you did?
It was actually really going to those marginalized neighborhoods, those slums, those belts of misery, talking to children, talking to the parents, I just wanted to understand the problem from many different angles. So we start talking about with the children, then we talk to the parents, then we start going to prisons, then we start going to detention centers, and then I wanted to understand it also from the justice point of view, from the law. How does it work? So we started going to courts and really spending a lot of time in courts, watching how does this justice system work when it's facing those kinds of problems, especially when we're talking about kids that that at some point find themselves in front of the justice, whether because they are seeking protection or whether because they've committed some kind of crime. How does the justice system also work? So it was really trying to understand the problem from many different angles, and really going to lots of talking to judges, to lawyers, going to the different NGOs that work on children's rights, all that.
Was there something in the research that you discovered that was particularly surprising or shocking to you that you felt you needed to include in the film?
Actually, the reality is much harsher than what you see in the film. Everything is shocking. It's shocking to know the extent of the neglect, the extent of the abuse. Sometimes those children are in such a state of shock sometimes that they don't even react. We saw children that don't talk, don't play, don't dance, don't cry, don't laugh. They don't react. They just look at you with nothing. They're in such a state of trauma because of the neglect and the abuse and they've been through. And we're not talking about hundreds or thousands of children. We're talking about millions of children in those situations across the world. The most shocking thing for me was to see even how unvaluable those kids think they are. No, most of them, 99% of those children don't even know when they are born. You ask them, so how old are you? He gives you a very approximate answer. So those kids have never actually celebrated their birthday. They don't know, I'm 12 or 13 or 12 or 13 or I don't know. So when are you born? I don't know. My mother told me I was born on a rainy day or I was born on Christmas. This is the only reference they can give me. So they've never actually celebrated their birthday. Nobody's ever told them, you are important to me. Your coming to this world is important to me. So this was also one of the things that was very shocking to know. It's really practically 99% of the kids who are in this situation. How the words they use to describe themselves, they use words like I'm an insect, I'm nothing, I'm trash, I'm a parasite. Some of them are even born and die without anybody knowing, because they're not existent. They haven't been registered, so nobody knows they even exist. So they are born and die without anybody knowing.
Right.
So the most shocking thing was to understand how sometimes a human life is actually compared to nothing, a chair or an object. It's nothing. It's as if it's not important. It's whatever. Yeah, my child is born and he dies. Okay, this is life. That's destiny. This is God's will. And those kids are dying from neglect. Just stupid, sometimes stupid reasons. Kids die because he fell off the balcony because there was nobody there, or because he put his hand in the electrical plug, or because some of them are even die because they're beaten to death, or because they're abused or raped. So the neglect, the extent of neglect is unbearable, and we should really be aware of that.
I wanted to ask you about the child at the center of the movie. I apologize if I mispronounce his name. Zayn al-Rafia. Rafia, thank you.
Zayn and Rafia.
Thank you. Can you just talk a bit about what made him right for the part and how you worked with him to get the performance that you needed out of him?
Zayn is actually a Syrian refugee, and he flew the war when he was 4, 5, 6 years old. He came to Lebanon, and he was living in Lebanon in very difficult circumstances, in one of those slums that we describe in the film, that we show in the film. So he's never been to school. The only difference from the film is that he has loving parents. But even though he had loving parents, he was not given any chance in life. So he never went to school. the moment we shot, at the moment that we were shooting the film, Zayn didn't even know how to write his name, which is only 3 letters. So his school was the streets, really. This is where he learned everything. So everything about him tells you that his body language, his verbal expressions, his foul language, um, his eyes that tell you how much it shows that he's a witness of so many things, the wisdom that he has, the strength of character, because Zayn had to really struggle to exist. He had to really struggle not to be beaten up. He had to fight not to be mistreated and abused. And because you know how society deals with street children, with children who found themselves, yes, in those situations. We tend to be very, very disrespectful, and we tend to be very harsh. And so he was in that situation. So he knows what we're talking about. In the film, and he sort of felt he was on a mission. He was the voice of those voiceless kids that he used to see. Everything in the film is something he knows. Every theme we talk about is something he's been exposed to, whether early marriage or whether abuse or stateless children, children without school, uh, um, being hungry, not receiving any affection from anyone. He knows all the things we're talking about in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you just almost don't even have to give him direction in that sense.
Sorry?
I said, I guess you almost don't have to even give him direction in that sense.
Yes, you have to really work around his personality. I mean, his personality is everything he's seen. Even the way he stands or walks or his gesture, he's a result of what he's been through. So it's about I think talking a lot, explaining what we're doing, why we're doing it, and really working with this raw nature, because he's a wild child. He's a child who hasn't been altered by society's codes, because he's never been to school. So he's free. He's more free than other kids, I think, who actually are more exposed to what society needs from them or what they are supposed to be or become. He's free, so he's more, I think, raw in his reactions, and you have to know how to work with that. You have to know how to, and it's fascinating because he almost makes the most sense out of everybody. Zayn and Jonas, the baby, are the people who make the most sense in the film, because they have raw reactions and pure reactions. So it was amazing to work, fascinating to work with them. It's very challenging, of course, because you need time to get to where you want. Of course, this is why we shot 6 months, and you need lots of explanation and a lot of talking and discussions in order to dig with them in their own experience, and for them to really understand what they're doing. They have to dig in their own life, in their own stories, in their own memories. So there was a lot of work on that in order to get there. And obviously, always the first takes are really, really bad, and you think you don't know where you're going, and you don't know if it was the right decision to do this way and all that. You start, but then slowly you start shaping it towards the final result. It takes a lot of time. It takes long takes of sometimes over an hour. It takes a very passionate crew. It takes an amazing cinematographer who's willing, to go all the way and to, hold his camera for over an hour, and a whole crew who's ready to just capture the right moment and is very patient, because sometimes we would shoot certain scenes for 2-3 days and then go back to reshoot them sometimes 2 months later, because it wasn't the right time and they were not ready at that time. So you have to be also very free. and not to be scared of not doing things when you're supposed to do them, but know that, in a way, you have to adapt. You have to adapt to their personalities and not the other way around.
Was that thinking part of what influenced your visual style for the film? I mean, you shoot in a very kind of naturalistic, gritty sort of way. So was that part of that?
Absolutely. It was we had to find a way to shoot, and in order not to paralyze them in any way. So they have to be free. They had to be very free, create the space for them to be free, to forget we even exist sometimes. And we have to be always ready for whatever's going to happen. So we have to be very mobile. That's why the choice of handheld, to always be ready to change positions, and to follow whatever action is going to happen sometimes, because they were sometimes moments that were completely unexpected. So the word was never stop shooting no matter what. And also a very natural lighting, because we didn't want to also paralyze them by structuring it, or making it too organized. It was impossible. You have to create this organized chaos for them to really be free. So it was impossible to shoot this film in a classical way, or to expect things to happen when you want them to happen.
You mentioned that the film will hopefully lead to debate, and so I wonder what are you hoping that audiences across the globe uh, take away when they see this film?
Uh, I think the most important thing is really to change your perspective in a way, or to acknowledge the problem. Of course, we all acknowledge the problem. I'm not. Everybody's moved by those situations, and everybody, but just acknowledging that we can do something about it, and we should, each one of us, feel responsible in a way, and start the change. We cannot continue this way, because we're really, I think it's going to explode in our faces. We're talking about millions of children that are growing up angry. Not only angry, sometimes even not not feeling anything anymore, almost numb. So what do we do with that? What do we do with those children that are growing up like this? It's going to explode in our faces one day. We need to acknowledge this. We need to. I truly believe that the source of evil in the world is unloved childhood, is neglected childhood, abused childhood. This is where it all starts. This is really one of the most important issues that we need to tackle in the world, and stop this intolerance and this fear of the other, and this fear of, we're creating hatred, we're creating anger, if we don't acknowledge this, and it's going to explode in our faces.
Well, it's a powerful movie. Nadine Labaki, thank you so much. Congratulations on your work. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a good one.